Okay, so I wanted to follow up. I referenced the fact that I'm a big sports fan and Vikings fan and all that, and how that didn't necessarily come from my dad because he was a hunter and fisherman and all that, and an outdoorsman and a sportsman rather than a sports fan. Although he would say the Vikings are his favorite team because that's just where he grew up in Minnesota. So, but he didn't follow it like I did. Like I knew everything about the Vikings. I knew every player. I knew their stats. I would follow them religiously. But so he never followed them that close. He might have known whether they won or lost or something. But anyhow, but the way I actually became a Vikings fan was I was 9 years old during the 1977 Super Bowl. That was a year of football season that I started just, first paying attention. So the game on and stuff. I'm back growing up in Great Falls at that time. We had 2 channels, and then later on there was a third added. I could still remember, Channel 5 was KFBB, Channel 3 was KRTV, and those were the only 2 TV channels we had. And then later on, I remember they added a third channel, and I want to say it was Channel 12. I don't remember what the letters were. So KFBB, KRTV, and then I'm pretty sure it was Channel 12 that was added later on. But anyway, so we didn't, that I recall, in those days we never had like cable TV or nothing, and so you just watch what's on the channels that you do get. So, but typically on Sundays they would play football, and so that's when I started watching. So I started following it. Well, the Vikings were really good that year, and so I was watching the Vikings game, and I knew that my dad was from Minnesota, and I liked the Vikings, but I guess I didn't really care. Like I could have easily been a fan of any other team, and it wouldn't. In other words, I didn't become a Vikings fan just because my dad was from Minnesota. Even though I knew that, but I could have chosen any other team, and just the same. But anyhow, coming up into the Super Bowl, the Vikings, their quarterback, of course, was Fran Tarkenton, and that whole team. Something about them, I just I fell in love with the entire team. I knew, from Fran Tarkenton to Chuck Foreman. I want to say Sammy White. Of course, you had the Purple People Eaters, Ron Yeri and Carl Eller, and that whole team was just a magical team. And so I really liked him, but my favorite player, of course, was number 10, Fran Tarkenton. He was the scrambler, and he was just the greatest. I mean, he was setting NFL records. In fact, he held virtually every NFL record there was for many years, and he was just the best. Like he was old. He wasn't old school like your old school pocket passer. He was different in that, if there wasn't a receiver open, he would just keep running around until he found one, or else he would run it himself for a first down or something. So his nickname became the Scrambler because of that. But so he was a good guy, and the Vikings, they were good guys. And so the other team, they were the bad guys, the Oakland Raiders. Kenny Stabler is nicknamed the Snake. And so you had those guys, and they were up against the Vikings in the Super Bowl, and they were all black and black uniforms, and so you had the good guys in the really cool looking purple uniforms, versus the bad guys in the black uniforms, and they were the Raiders, and our quarterback was the Snake. And how could you root for that? So I just, of course, wanted the good guys to win. So I just was in hook, line, and sinker with the Vikings and following them. And I watched that Super Bowl, and I believe it's probably the first Super Bowl I ever saw or ever remember seeing. And when the Vikings didn't win, I was devastated. I was so heartbroken. I probably cried for 2 weeks. And I knew that they would be back the next year, and they would win it next year. Can you believe that was in 1977? 54 years ago coming up? 53 years ago, right? No, 43. Yeah, sorry, my math. 43 years ago. They've never even been back to the Super Bowl since then. That's how long I've been suffering. So, but anyway, I just wanted to give that context. Didn't necessarily have to do with my dad, but it did in the sense that he was from Minnesota and liked them, and because of some of the bad memories I had from not enjoying the hunting and fishing. I enjoyed the hunting and fishing with him. I just didn't like how he treated me a lot during those times. He was just a very hard man, and he could just crush me just with his words and stuff, and he did many times. And so I never enjoyed it. It's like if I knew it was just him and I going hunting and fishing, I knew that there was better chance than not that it was going to be a miserable trip for me, even though we might have some fun. So anyway, so that's why I kind of didn't get into that as much, but I got more into being a sports fan. Later in life, and I'll end with this on this one, is that back in September of 2019, after my dad had a stroke, and I made my last solo trip over there to Condi, South Dakota. This is that I'm on right now was the next trip over, but that was September 2019. He was bedridden. He was pretty much physically couldn't even sit up on his own. He couldn't even couldn't walk or nothing. Had very limited speech stuff. He had some use of his arms, and so he could actually feed himself, but had to be kind of like the food broken up and stuff. But anyhow, so when I was over there that time, the Vikings were actually on TV. And so, I asked him, I said, "Dad, do you want to watch the Vikings game?" And he said, "Yeah." And so he was in his, he had a little bedroom downstairs in the house and had a bed in there and had a TV. So we could have easily sat in there and watched the game. But instead, Kathy and I carried him out. We got him out of bed, actually put him in his wheelchair, but then brought him out to the living room where he had a big lazy boy chair, and we set him up in there to where he's propped up in the chair with some pillows and stuff. And he and I sat there and watched the entire game. It was just really cool watching a full Vikings game with my dad. He was of sound mind enough that he was able to follow it. He would drift in and out sometimes, but for the most part, we could just talk about the game, talk about what was happening and what their strategy was, talk about the game. It was really cool. That's one of my final memories, great memories of spending time with my dad. But anyway, we'll get to that. That's a flash forward. So anyhow, I'll talk to you later.